Hello, welcome back to the James Rambling Reviews for yet another episode. In today's episode, this is actually going to be the final Cornetto Trilogy type of review, where I'm actually going to talk about The World's End. And so before I get into how I felt about The World's End, this will be a I won't like I did with Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz. I'm not going to spoil like scene by scene, but to prove my points as to how I felt about the film, I do need to actually mention very big details about the movie to prove my point, kind of thing. So before we get into that, I am going to kind of state the fact that I absolutely love Shaun of the Dead. I absolutely love Hot Fuzz, but Hot Fuzz is definitely my favourite movie, and as you get, once I start to unpack my thoughts about The World's End, I do still stand by the fact that Hot Fuzz is probably going to be my favourite. Like, the more times I do this like Cornetto Trilogy marathon rewatch type of thing, I feel like Hot Fuzz is just going to be my favourite unless things change and it becomes The World's End. So there's definitely that, and so just to give you a bit of context here with my past experiences with The World's End. So The World's End has been a movie that I enjoyed from my first couple of viewings. Like, I actually enjoy this movie. Sure, it isn't the most perfect thing ever, but I still enjoy the movie, and it actually brings a whole new different kind of style to this whole kind of Cornetto Trilogy thing, because it actually is a completely different genre from the other two movies. And that's what's so interesting about these movies, is that they're not all the same genre. Sure, there's familiar actors, and it's got Simon Pegg and Nick Frost in it, and Edgar Wright directs all three of them, but you have like different themes and ideas going on. So there's that. And so if you want to know what this movie is actually about, so pretty much what you've got here is you've actually got this guy called Gary King, played by Simon Pegg, right, where they go on this quest to like pub crawl these bars, right? Like, you know, they go into the bar and get a drink from the bartender, then they go to the next bar, etc, etc, until they reach this point where they go to The World's End, which is actually meant to be the final pub in this entire journey and adventure. So there's definitely that, and there's also this added layer that the guy Gary King, played by Simon Pegg, is this dude where he just doesn't want to change at all, and he's just like this guy who's like, you know what, I want to go back to the days where I'm just drinking beer with the boys kind of thing. And his other like crewmates or his mates or his colleagues are like, no dude, shut up, we don't like you anymore. And he plays like this really obnoxious like middle-aged man that's just really wanted to relive his childhood kind of thing. So you definitely have that. And so how do I actually feel about this movie? Because I did mention that Hot Fuzz is still my favourite of this trilogy. And yes, I do enjoy The World's End. There is a few points where this movie is absolutely hilarious, man. It really does actually bring an interesting thing where you just have these dudes talking in a bar, and they're just kind of bantering off about life and things like that. And then Gary King actually lies about how his mum actually died, and you get to see all of this crazy stuff that Gary King is doing, and he's proving to his friends that he really is not a nice person at all. And there's a point where you had Sean and Nicholas Angel, where you're rooting for these dudes that just want to save everything. Well, Gary King is this guy where he's such a broken, depressed man that at times you do feel bad for him, right? But then there's other times where I actually find myself enjoying the other characters more. So for example, there's scenes where when Simon Pegg isn't on screen, there's a lot of the characters a lot more funnier because they add a different perspective. And then see when this movie hits the point of the whole plot twist, where they figure out that there's a sci-fi plot, like in this Doctor Who-ish type of thing, where these people that they were seeing at the bar, they're actually designed to be like robots, and then when they actually attack them, stuff comes out of their body and it looks like blue paint, right, but it's like kind of like blue blood splatters everywhere, and all this crazy action is going on. And there's definitely that, and I'm definitely stating that. But I don't think I actually mentioned this, that this movie, while it actually has alright pacing, it does take a while to get going, because there's literally just a point where it's just kind of talking. It's just Gary King talking about himself until you see the other characters. So there's a point where you're not really understanding what's actually going on, and then later on it makes sense. And that's the thing about Edgar Wright in the other movies, was like, he was just like, you know what, I'm just going to kind of tell you, oh, this is what happens, but he's just kind of going to slowly introduce that. So what does follow through and follow suit through to this movie, but that is also kind of the pitfall of The World's End, is that the pacing, while it's kind of fast paced and, you know, it's not a boring movie entirely, there are just literal points where it's only about Gary King, and he is the main character, but then when you don't have the other characters to kind of see what they're doing, it's just like, oh, where is this movie going to go? Is this movie going to get any more interesting? So that when you get to that whole plot review where it actually goes from this British bar banter movie into a sci-fi superhero chaos mayhem movie, it gets a lot more interesting. And the other added addition is the fact that as they get more drunk in this movie, right, they actually gain these superpowers where, like, they actually just destroy these enemies and they destroy these people, and it does definitely get a lot more interesting. And then you get to see later on when they actually find out why everything the way it was, and why they were meant to be the way they were, and why these weird enemies came from the place that they did. And there's all of that kind of stuff where you get to see like how his friends, like Gary King's friends, were a part of this. And there's a whole scene where Gary King and also Nick Frost's character, they're just like kind of like smack talking this robot sounding machine. It's like, oh, you silly person, why did you do this to us? Nobody cares about you, kind of thing. And there's a lot of British banter in this movie. So there really is a lot to say about this movie, but if I was to give this movie a rating out of 10, it's a solid 7 or 8 out of 10. Like, not better than Hot Fuzz and not better than Shaun of the Dead, but it's still a solid movie, and I would watch this movie again. And if I had to, like I did say, I would actually watch these movies. I would actually watch these movies quite a few times again, because they are just very, very enjoyable movies. So that is pretty much my whole spiel, my whole take on The World's End. Hope you enjoyed this video, and the world really will not end in terms of the James Rambling reviews, because we're going to be reviewing a few more. There's going to be more reviews coming out, because I will be reviewing Speak No Evil, because that's on my channel. So yeah, bye.